Evam, thus, Kridamadihi, desiring, Garbhe, in the womb, Dasamasayaha, 10-month-old, Stuvan, extolling, Rishihi, the living entity, Sadhyaha, at that very time, Tripadi, propels, Avachinam, turned downward, Prasutye, for birth, Tuti Marudaha, the wind for childbirth. Translation by His Divine Grace, S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Lord Kabila continued, the 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps parturition propels him forth with his face turned downwards, and so that he may be born. We will also recite, since this is now the purport, we'll also read the next words. Tena avasradaha sahasa, tena avasrishta sahasa, kritvaige shira aduraha, minishkramadi krachena, nirichavaso hadas smrdihi. Synonyms: Tena, by that wind, avasrishtaha, pushed downward, sahasa, suddenly, Krutva, turned, avak, downward, shira, his head, aduraha, suffering, minishkramadi, he comes out, krachena, with the great trouble, nirichavasaha, breathless, hada, deprived of, smrdihi, memory. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless, and deprived of memory due to severe agony. The word Krichena means with great difficulty. When the child comes out of the abdomen through the narrow passage due to pressure, there the breathing system completely stops, and due to agony, the child loses his memory. Sometimes the trouble is so severe that the child comes out dead or almost dead. One can imagine what the pangs of birth are like. The child remains for 10 months in that horrible condition within the abdomen. At the end of 10 months, he is forcibly pushed out. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord points out that a person who is serious about advancement in spiritual consciousness should always consider the 4 pangs of birth, death, disease, and old age. The materialist advances in many ways, but he is unable to stop these 4 principles of suffering inherent in material existence. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stabidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gada Mahyam Dadati Supadandigam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yudapadagammalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanidam Tam Sajivam Sadhuidam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalidam Shri Vishakhanidamsya. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanda Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gauranki Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupasya Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimade Lokanath Swami Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimade Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Harihi Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandavad Pranam. So thank you so much for joining this very auspicious satsang. Today is also the eve of the auspicious Ekadashi. Ekadashi is tomorrow. Today is Dashami. So tomorrow's Ekadashi is also very special, which is mentioned that it's called Pashva Ekadashi or Parivartana Ekadashi or Vamana Ekadashi. Because of on this Ekadashi, the Tidhi and the round, the Lord Vamanadev appeared. So this also Lord Vamanadev's appearance. Also, Pashva Ekadashi, as we know that this Chadurmasa, we are observing Chadurmasa for months. That's where the Lord goes to the Yoga Nidra, transcendental sleep, or called Yoga Nidra. And then Pashva Ekadashi means on the Ashadi Ekadashi, Lord goes and then to the slumber, the transcendental sleep, the Yoga Nidra. And on this Ekadashi, Lord turns from left side to right side. That's known as Pashva Ekadashi. It's mentioned that if you want to observe strictly, then one can eradicate all their past sins, and they can get their Krishna consciousness or spiritual. One can enter into liberate himself and enter into the spiritual realm by observing this. So significance are there. That's why Ekadashi is always is Madhava Tidhi, Bhakti Janani. Madhava Tidhi, this is the Tidhi of the Supreme Lord that one claims to be a Vaishnava should definitely observe this, not looking at that, what benefit I get or what that I get, but rather than to observe this, that very closer, Upavas, very closer to the Supreme Lord of Krishna. That's called Upavas, means closer, sit nearby, sit closer. So that's also an auspicious day tomorrow. Everybody can observe. And so let's come back to our class. So we were going through this chapter, and this chapter is titled as Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entity. So it's very powerful, and it gives lots of information about how a child takes birth. So in this section, the Kapila Devi is mentioning, Lord Kapila continued, the 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. So what are the desires? So that's where we were going through. So from the 12th verse onwards, the living entity prays to the Lord. So 12th verse onwards. So we know that in the beginning, in the first verse itself, Kapila Devi is mentioning that under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his karma, a living entity takes birth according to his karma. So, and it's mentioned that, so the very small particles of the semen mix with the ovum, and then that the first day it's mixed. So that's why it says it's mixed. And it says that on the fifth day, it creates just like a small, the bubble. It creates just like a small bubble. So it's very beautifully, Kapila Devi is none other than the Supreme Lord, reveals this. And this is, as we know that, this is transcendental science or absolute truth. And this is where we have to really depend and rely on, because of this is aparimeya, transcendental truth. As we mentioned that the Bhagavatam is the essence of the Vedas, and then that is called aparimeya. That means it's beyond our mental speculation. So we have to completely taste this. So on the fifth day, it creates a bubble, and on the 10th day, it creates a bubble, fifth day bubble, and the 10th day it creates just like a plum. Then it started to have the flesh, and then on the first month, it's create the head, and then the subsequent months, like the second month, it's create the hands and the body and the part. The third months, all these 7 elements of the flesh, the blood and the child and all the demons and all those things, elements which creates. And the fourth month, Then it's actually further develops the body. And then on the fifth month, so like that is goes on. And the 7 months, it's actually 6 months, it turns to the other side, and it's now completely formed. And then seventh month onwards, this the consciousness is regained within the womb. The child regained that the consciousness that he is not this material element, but rather than he is connected, eternally connected with the Supreme Lord. So he has this remembrance, and he started to pray to the Supreme Lord. Oh, Supreme Lord, now I am again coming back into this material world with this miserable, suffering material world. Please protect me. Please save me. I don't want to get into this material world. It's full of suffering and misery. And this is where that the living entity has coming to his consciousness and regain that remembrance of that is suffering. And as we know that the living entity goes life after life, millions of life after life, as going and taking birth in this world, and he understands that. So only this time he comes to that his original consciousness that what suffering he is going through. And he also understands that only shelter is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nobody else, in this stage of within the mother's womb. So he prays to the Supreme Lord. He continuously prays to the Supreme Lord until this, the verse till 21st. And continuously saying that, oh Lord, please protect me. And you are the only shelter, and that I am this, not this matter, I am not this material elements. So please take me out from all this. So continuously prays like this. And then Kapiladev says further, the 10-month-old living entity has this disease even while in the womb. So the living entity doesn't want to come out of it. But while he extols the Lord, praises the Lord, the wind that helps his protrusion propels him forth with his face turned downward so that he may be born. So now there is no way that because of, as per the karma, law of karma, he has to take the birth. So no matter what, then the Paramatma within the body, Paramatma is there, and then helps to bring that the child come into this world. So then in the next two verse, it reveals that uh, pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless, and deprived of memory due to severe agony. So this is where the acharyas mentioned that how difficult that a birth is taking place. And it's mentioned that with that, the power of the wind comes through a small, narrow passage. And this time, the child become breathless and almost dead, or sometimes dead, or that memory and completely lost. And it's that's what is the birth is defined. Sometimes people celebrate the birth, but we don't know that the child goes through how much difficulties, how much trouble that child goes through. And not only that, even mother goes through that, all these horrible conditions. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned that in the purport, the word Krichena means with great difficulty. So this word is why Kapiladev is mentioning here this all this process of the movements of the soul, or the how the living entity takes, because it is all full of suffering and sufferings and misery. So Srila Prabhupada also many places mention that this Janma, Mrityu, Jara Vyadhi, Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam, Janma, Mrityu, Jara Vyadhi, the body is subject to its own principles of birth, death, old age, and disease. But one who is situated in spiritual life, then they don't have any birth, death, old age, and disease. So this is the point that Srila Kapiladev wanted to reveal to us. So Kapiladev is giving us the information, giving us this knowledge. And what is means by taking birth in this world is not at all joyful. It's full of misery. But one who has situated in the spiritual life, and also at the same point of time, that the human birth is only the birth that we can remember the Supreme Lord. We have that consciousness, elevated consciousness, only in the form of the human life. So that we can remember, we can regain our original consciousness, we have the opportunity to be in spiritual life, in spiritual path. That happens, that can be only on the human form of life. So because of that human form of life on the top of this ladder, and that also human form of life is very rare to have. Very rare to have the human form. Durlabha manava janama satsanga. Durlabha. It's very rare to have this human form of life. So we know that how, again, that okay, we says that okay, the soul or this particle of semen mixed with the ovum, right? So how is that the particle of semen has this? So the soul is coming down. The soul is actually entering into the body of the father. That how that soul is coming into the body of the father, that is also Bhagavad explains that it comes down, it falls down into the body. So as it's mentioned that the when a person dies, so it goes through as per the karma. That's why Kabila Devi is mentioning that as per the laws of karma, as per the result of his karma, he takes the birth. So he takes the form of a birth and into according to, and he gets the body accordingly. So every living entity gets the body accordingly as per his karma, his activities that he performs while he is living. So here a person dies or living entity dies as per the karma, especially the human form of life, and he gets, depends on his karma, he gets higher planetary system or the lower planetary system. This goes around samsara chakra, life after life after life. Sometimes he goes upwards, sometimes he goes downwards. If he's then done the good karma, he goes upwards on the, it's called urdhalok. Urdhaloka means upper planetary systems. And then if he's a bad karma, he goes to adholok or the lower planetary system. And this, what we are on this planet is called Madhyalok or the intermediate. This is called intermediate planetary system. That's where it's known as the earthly planetary systems. So if he goes to the Urdhalok, then what happens? He goes up in upward planetary systems, and some point of time he also has to come down when his karma is finished. So then he falls down on this intermediate planetary system that's called the earthly planet. And how he comes down? He comes down through the rain. So he comes down through the rain, and the rain then goes to the field and the on the plain, and then that gets into the grain, and the soul gets into the grain, and then the people eat that grain goes to the body of the living entity. So then what happens? Accordingly, he takes the birth, then that comes into the semen, and then that comes to the then mix with. So this is the journey. So this is also Bhagavata. Later we can see that this all, where what happens to the living entity that goes downwards, that goes to the hell. And that's where the lower planetary systems. So then it comes back again into the another form of life. So this goes on. This very clearly goes on. So it's very important to understand that the journey of the living entity. That's why, so that we can understand, so that we can situate in that there is no birth again, there is no death again, there is no old age again, and there is no disease again. How is that possible? It says that a person situated in the spiritual path, the spiritual life, then he will not have any more death, old age, and disease. And Srila Prabhupada very nicely mentioned that as well. When one is promoted to this status, what status? The spiritual life, one is always happy in transcendental bliss. That means, as we mentioned, that dukkha dosha and darshanam, dukkha dosha, there is always painful, there is always misery. But when one situates into the spiritual life, then he does not have to go through again this, suffering conditions, and he situates in the transcendental bliss. So this pretty much everybody, those who are devotees, those who are situated in the spiritual path, can experience this. There is no doubt into that. So it's mentioned that as long as one is in the bodily concept of life, one must suffer material conditions, no matter what. That's why there's the laws of this world. As it's mentioned that Devi Yesha Gunamai Mamaya Duradaya Mam Eve Prabhadyante Maya Memanta. It's very difficult to overcome. Once we come into this material world, it's very, very difficult to overcome these conditions, material conditions. And that material condition is known as birth, death, old age, diseases, and goes through these various stages of the life, and so many adhyatmik, adi bhaudik, adi devik, the miseries of the living entities. And then anarthas, the one who creates that adhyatmic anarthas, which creates internally kama, krodha, moha, lobha, mada, malsarya, and all these varieties of every moment, padam, padam, yet vipadam. That means mention that every step there is a danger in this world. So this is called material condition. So as the body is subject to its own principles of birth, death, old age, and disease, there is no doubt into that. But one who's situated in the spiritual life, Edor Bhakti Radokshaje. So in the Bhagavatam, as is mentioned that Savai Pumsha Paro Dharma Edor Bhakti Radokshaje. So one situate into that Adokshaja, in the Bhakti Radokshaja, one situate into the spiritual life and engage in the loving devotional service to that Adokshaja. Adokshaja means that one who can see inward. So Adha Akshaja. Adha means down or in inner. Akshaja means eyes. Adho Akshaja means one who can see inner. That means inside. So Lord is always seated in our heart. Paramatma, he is seated in our heart. So he can be always seen like that way because of everything comes from him, as mentioned that. So one who situated in that bhaktir adokshaja, then he will not be subject anymore these material conditions of the life, which is birth, death, old age, and disease. That means he will not have the birth. So he can liberate himself from these clutches of this material pangs of birth or the death or something like that. So Asis knows that one who understands this constitutional position. So this is what Kapila Dev wanted to inform us and reveal to us. So one has to come to what is his original constitutional position? Jivera Swarupa Hoy Nityara Krishna Das. That means he is eternally, transcendently part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and his eternal Swarup is actually the servant of the Supreme Lord. So then what happens when he comes? He does not understand. When he doesn't come to this consciousness, what will happen? He is the one who goes to this bodily concept of life. I, me, myself, and then all these things. And then he situate himself in such a way that then he completely forget. He completely forget his identity, his original constitutional position. So that's where all the trouble starts. Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion that the root cause of our suffering, of the misery, the pain, or unhappiness, all this is happening within this world because of this ignorance and the forgetfulness. Ignorance, root cause of suffering. Because of where does ignorance come from? Our forgetfulness. So when this forgetfulness comes, because of we have so much of attachment to this material world, when we have so much of attachment to this material world, that's where all this that's in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that while contemplating the object of senses, person develop attachment. The attachment, from the attachment, then the lust arises, from the lust anger arises, from the anger bewilderment of memory, then memory is lost, intelligence is lost, then the intelligence is lost, the person fall down again into this material pool. So this is the cycle of this journey, dear devotees, that the root cause of our suffering is ignorance and the forgetfulness. This all we develop because of our the sensual attachment or the sensual desires to enjoy or lord it over this material nature. So it's very clear that why we are taking this birth again and again in this material world, because of we forget about our original constitutional position. So it's very important to understand that we are eternally belongs to the Supreme. As Srila Prabhupada says that our condition, our nature belongs to the superior nature or paraprakriti, not the apara prakriti or the inferior nature. We are belongs to the superior nature. That's why we are called the Tadastha Shakti, the part of the Supreme Lord, and Tadastha, marginal potency of the Lord. We are potency of that Supreme Lord. That's why we are living, or we are called the living entity or Atma, or the portion or the part of the Atma. That's why part of the Paramatma. That's why we are called also Atma. But we are not Paramatma, but we are the part and parcel of that Supreme. So we are belongs to the superior nature, belongs to the Paraprakriti, not the Aparaprakriti. When our problem starts that when the living entity comes in contact with this material nature or Aparaprakriti, then that is an incompatible situation. So we always need to understand this. But when we are belongs to the superior nature, Paraprakriti, that is our compatible situation. Srila Prabhupada gives a beautiful example of that. It's like a fish. When a fish in the water, that's our natural condition. Similarly, dear devotees, that's our natural condition situated in the spiritual life. So we have the three bodies. One is the spiritual body, then it's next is called the Sushma Sharir, or the or the subtle body, and then we have the gross body. So when a person so much grows and attached to this all the sensual, and then he is the one who gets the gross body in and completely, and then he completely covered by this subtle body with his full of desires. But when we are come out, that's called liberation from our attachment, from his all these anarthas, then forgetfulness, ignorance, and all come out of that. But then we come to that our spiritual body, then that's what is which like Srila Prabhupada gives an example, a fire covered by the ashes and the smoke. But the fire is there. But what happens? The fire is completely covered with ashes. So similarly, our constitutional position condition is that we are completely covered with this subtle and the gross body. So, but our original constitutional position, we are spirit soul, we are like a spark, the fire. So when the ashes are not there, fire ignites and it's enlightens so well that we can see that the power of the fire. So similarly, the soul is like that, belongs to the superior nature, belongs to the so. But when it come in contact with this inferior nature of our Prakriti, then it goes through this all material suffering and conditioning. So our aim, that the purpose of the human form of life is to understand this. That's why Srila Kapila wanted to reveal this. So when we understand this, our constitutional position that we are belongs to the Supreme, our nature is to be with that Supreme and engage in the loving devotional service to that Supreme. Then we comes out from this. That's called liberation. We comes out from this birth to death, old age, disease, this samsara chakra, or called this repeated life, birth and death, repeated cycle of birth and death. And then we come out and then completely we'll be transcendently blissful eternally. Then we will not have again birth, death, old age, disease in this world. So this Kabila Devi so nicely explained like this. So the bottom point is, dear devotees, understand our constitutional position and what we are. We are belongs to the superior nature. That's why we are completely different from all other inanimate or the material subject or material elements. But we are completely living. So we can understand that all this. And Kabila Dev wanted to reveal this to us so that some way or other that we can come to the devotional service. Then there is no more death, birth, death, old age, and so how we can come to that by our loving devotional service. And then there are a lot of beautifully that we can engage in the service of the Lord and have that pure consciousness of Krishna. Then that is of our perfection. That's the success of our life. So thank you so much. With this note, I would end here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grandaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Back to Madhuri Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay. Madhuri Prabhu is not there. Okay. Thank you, dear devotees. If you have any comments or the questions, concerns, you can post it into the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And so thank you so much. Let's together chant the holy name of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let's pray our obeisances to the Narasimhadev. Shri Narasimha, Jai Narasimha, Jai Jai Narasimha, Prahaladesha, Jai Padma Mukha Padma Bhranga, Ugram Viryam Mahavishnu, Jalandam Sarvado Mukha, Narasimham Vishanam Bhadram, Murtyur Murtiramamya Namamyakam. Shri Narasimha, Jai Narasimha, Jai Jai Narasimha, Prahaladesha, Jai Padma Padma. So let's offer our humble obeisance to all the assembled Vaishnava devotees. Vancha Kalpatarupasya, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patidanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Vaishnavanda ki Jai, Grandaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So, there's a few announcements. So this 17 is actually the Bhadra Purnima. So we are all hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every day, and Bhagavatam itself, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So Bhagavatam is the ultimate and utmost the Vedic scripture, that we can take it in our life and life can be transformed. As mentioned, that this is completely absolute truth. So September 17th is Bhadra Purnima. This is the day that Srila Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's mentioned that on the Purnima or the Bhadrapada Purnima, one gives this Srimad Bhagavatam as a gift to someone, then he can attain the abode of the Supreme Lord. Your devotees, you don't need to do anything else. All you need to do is on this day, if you give this Srimad Bhagavatam, you will attain the Vaikuntha, liberate from that. We are going through this class, birth, death, old age, and diseases. We can come out of it and we can attain. So always remember, this is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto. I think it's in the 13th chapter, and then it is, I think, in the 13th verse, no, 5th chapter, 13th verse. It is mentioned that on this day, that one who offers gift this Srimad Bhagavatam to the any other as gift, you give us a gift, then one can attain the Supreme Lord. No doubt into that. So, so we have to take this. So we would humbly request that at least of those who are here, I could see that around 15, 14, 13 devotees are here. And everybody, please try your best to give us a gift, one Srimad Bhagavatam set to at least whom you are near or friends or whomever, dear devotees. This is the way that we are sitting closer to Krishna or Kodupava. So this is the way that we can situate. So there is no more death, birth, death, old age, and diseases. This is our wonderful opportunity as a human. And we never know how long we are going to live. This is our wonderful opportunity. So Shubhasya Shikram, as early as possible, Shubhasya Shikram, that we should engage in the service of the Lord some way or other. So we spend loads of money for unnecessary things in this world, unnecessary things, thousands of dollars, dear devotees. This is just like one set of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's nothing, just negligible compared to just we spend the money for so many material, fulfillments. So take this opportunity, distribute the Srimad Bhagavatam and offer and give as a gift to someone. And if you don't have, please have the Srimad Bhagavatam at the home. Lord himself, as is mentioned, that where Srimad Bhagavatam, I am there. Krishna says to Uddhava, I will leave. And Uddhava asked this question, that how can I remember you, Lord? How can I see you, Lord, if you leave like this? Krishna said, I'll be in my Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll be there with my Srimad Bhagavatam. So one can always have this and remember this and take this opportunity to distribute and take Srimad Bhagavatam. And we will be also sending out the details. We'll have program on Tuesday evening at the temple, the Bhadra Purnima festival. Everybody please join and participate, and one can attain the Supreme Lord. No doubt into that. So it's very clear from the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Tomorrow is Ekadashi, as I mentioned. So this is called Parshva Ekadashi. Please observe, and one can eradicate all their past sin just by observing this Ekadashi, chanting the holy name, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and attending the program of Supreme Lord, and some way or other. And then observe strictly, and then no sleeping on the daytime, but completely fast. If you are just eat one time a day, and likes that, and very minimally, and then fast from the grains and beans, likes that. So this is the way, completely observe, and then also break the fast on the next day, Dwadashi, and it's called the Vishnu Vasara. Vishnu Vasara means this is the auspicious day that the Supreme Lord in the morning time. So that's the time one should break the fast. So this way we can, every day our life is more closer to the Supreme. This way that we come out from these clutches of this material entanglement. So thank you so much. Any questions anybody has wanted to raise? Any comments?
Prabhuji, we are celebrating Purnima not this Saturday, week after Saturday. Is that right?
No, Purnima is on Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah, but I thought we are celebrating on Saturday. That's what
No, we are not celebrating.
We'll be celebrating on Tuesday.
Yeah, and then this Saturday is Ekadashi, 11th day.
And Prabhuji, no fasting till 12 tomorrow, right? For Vamana Dev?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. I also wanted to mention that. Yes, Sunday is the Vamana Dadvashi. That's called the appearance of the Supreme Lord Sri Vamana Dev. It's a beautiful. And also one can read, one can listen. This the past tense of the appearance of Supreme Lord Vamana Dev. It's recommended that on this Ekadashi. This Ekadashi is also known as Vamana Ekadashi. And completely fast till noon because of we are not supposed to fast on Dwadashi. So, in order to fast or appearance day of Vamana Dev, so we fast on Ekadashi or the previous day completely till noon and then observe and hear the pastimes of the Lord Vamana Dev. So this way we fast on Vamana Dev and then also Ekadashi. So complete fasting till noon tomorrow for observing Vamana Dwadashi. Yes, Mataji, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So let's conclude. Vanchakalpadarupasya. Adidana Pavanebhyo Vaishnava ki jai. Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Bhagavatam ki jai. Nandagodi Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanande.
Hare Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare